Hey everyone, Mako here, and I didn't think I'd be making another video so soon, but I think I need to get this one off my chest. Killing Floor 3 just came out, and honestly, I thought I'd be making a more positive video about it, something more in line of, hey, this game is pretty good. But to be completely fair, the release feels really underwhelming to say the least. So let's get on with the video. But before I start, if you like this video, please consider leaving a like and a sub. I'll be making more game review videos in the future. Okay, back to Killing Floor 3. I will try my best to credit the game where the credit is due, but I'm not going to glaze it, and honestly there isn't a lot to be positive about this game. And I'm going to be frank with you all. The game in its current state is playable at most. It does not feel like Killing Floor. Not only that, it also feels like the whole game kind of lost the technology and the soul. I will start off with what I mean by soul, and later, when I'll be talking about the other things in Killing Floor 3, I'll talk about what I mean by losing technology. What I consider a soul of a Killing Floor game are three very fundamental things. The first one would be very satisfying gunplay, both in weapon handling, so to speak, but also in sound. It feels like Tripwire used to care about how the weapons felt to use. There was always this feeling of a chunky oomph when you shoot an AR, a shotgun, or a precision or sniper rifle, while SMGs obviously didn't pack that much punch and were not as loud, but there was still some thought put into them. I mean, hey, I did talk about the gunplay in both of my previous videos in Killing Floor 1 and 2. The second thing is the map climate. In KF1, the maps resembled levels from a horror movie. It was gritty, gory out there, and you did feel the pressure. You felt like you were in a really terrible situation, apocalyptic level event. In KF2 there was still this feeling on some maps, but mostly the maps added to KF2 were just good. I mean, you did have some maps that actually still felt kind of like KF1, notably Nuked, although that was a community map. And speaking of that, the community literally carried the map making of these games on their back. There were so many good community maps made that it made playing both KF1 and 2 a very fun experience. And the third part, and something that I don't see that many people mention, but I do think that it was important to the game. There was a level of Britishness to the franchise. I mean, look, KF1 was entirely situated within UK, Horzine Biotech, etc., the initial breakout of Zeds, that was all placed within the United Kingdom. In fact, every character originally in the game was British. There was a lot of British humor in the things they were talking about, and if you ever searched anything about Killing Floor, you had to encounter somewhere at least one meme of one of the characters holding stacks of dosh. And yeah, I bet that unless you are actually British, the only reason you ever heard that word was because you heard it in Killing Floor. There are so many iconic lines in KF1 and still some good lines in KF2. And not only voice lines. I mean, if you literally look at the thumbnail of my last video, or not even the thumbnail but the actual KF2 promo graphic, Mr. Foster has a bloody Union Jack on his suit, and you can customize his gas mask to also be one huge Union Jack. So now with these three things pointed out, how's Killing Floor 3 doing in that department? Well, to touch on the gunplay, it feels honestly horrible. All of the guns within each perk shoot very samey, and they do not have that chunky feeling that a higher caliber weapon should have. I mean, listen to how all these guns sound.
Hold on, reloading!
I did actually just go to the shooting range and shoot every single gun that you can get, and not only do none of these guns sound serious, some of their sounds, especially the revolvers for the firebug and the sharpshooter, sound as if they were muffled. Commandos' assault rifles all sound like SMGs from Call of Duty games. Shotguns, while slightly louder, still do not have that very needed kick. Also, it feels like the guns don't even have recoil while you aim down sights. If you go full auto, they just have some random spray, and that's about it. And just the look of the guns is, well, off to say the least. They do not seem like actual functioning guns, but more like something you'd get in like Fortnite or something. I mean, if you were to paint the last commando weapon in the starting Wraith, white and blue or white and red, they would literally look like real life Nerf guns. Outside of the Commando's Bloodhound, which actually does resemble a functional pistol, and maybe the look of the futuristic version of a Scar, there aren't really any guns that actually look nice. Honestly, at this point, I would just backtrack on them and just add real life guns back and make sure that they sound like they should, and not like some pea shooters. Oh yeah, and an even funnier thing. Check this out. The syringe sound effect from this medic gun sounds very similar to how ninjas, kunais, and shurikens sound. I mean, come on, that is just embarrassing. There is one kind of saving grace to the guns, and that is the attachment system. While I do like it more than the upgrades from Killing Floor 2, there's much to be left to desire. They feel like they only slightly alter how the gun works. Increase, decrease the mag size, different optic sight, you can have a foregrip or a laser sight, etc. And you can level up specific attachments. While the concept is cool, it just kind of falls short because of how few weapons there are. You will most likely end up with the same weapon loadout every match, just with maybe slightly different mods. But regarding that, I will touch on it later when I talk about the bosses too. Now, on to number 2, maps. There is a lot to be desired here. From my understanding, after the so-called beta, which after watching it now, it seemed more like proof of concept rather than a beta, not even alpha in reality. But after watching the beta footage and comparing it to what the maps are currently, it seems like the devs took the feedback that maps feel too futuristic and clean to their heart and started sprinkling random dead corpses around the maps. More blood, some bodies with their guts ripped out to add to the atmosphere. And while in some spots that does make sense, it kind of seems like they just frantically started tossing similar dead body models left and right and didn't think through how to make them add to the climate of the maps. Obviously, it's still an improvement over what we had in beta, apparently, but it still seems like kind of a panic moment. Now, what do I mean by that? In Killing for One, dead bodies and other things were used to tell the story. They seemed to be placed in a thought-through way. In certain spots, blood spilled or dragged across the floor and walls in a specific manner to, for instance, show the way these Zeds were killing people. In Killing Floor 3, that is not the case. In fact, I imagine that what I said earlier was fairly accurate. Someone at Tripwire just saw how much backlash they received after beta, decided to change the city streets map from day to night, add a lot of neons and just throw bodies and blood everywhere, and then called it a day. I genuinely struggle to find something positive to say about the map pool in KF3. Except for the fact that these maps are clearly built with the new movement system in mind. There's zip lines for you to get up and down vertically. The maps are open enough for you to be able to slide around and dash around. But that's about it when it comes to maps. At least they were built with the new movement in mind. But since I touched on how they were built with movement in mind, there actually is at least one map that I believe is cool. I did like the radar station map, which has the small buildings sprinkled around the map and the large outside space to run around it. In that regard, it reminded me kind of the farmhouse map from KF2, although the farmhouse map was not big enough, but still there was a large open space and a couple buildings. And also, while I harped on it earlier, I do think that City Streets is a decent map. It's not as big as Raider Station, but it is big enough. And I also really liked the Army Depot. And when it comes to the variety within the map, I think that the offices map has the most variety, especially when you compare the rooftop section to the office buildings down below. But that is about all I could say about the maps, at least from the positive side. And on to number 3, which is the aforementioned Britishness. It's almost not there. I would say that that pillar of Killing Floor is kind of hanging on by a thread named Foster. And yeah, he's not even called Mr. Foster, just Foster, because it's not even the same Foster. But I'll get back to it in a bit. Back to the British part. The only reminders of the fact that this game used to be filled with British in-jokes and thick accent and just British atmosphere are two things and two things only. The fact that the in-game currency is called Dosh and that Foster still has some accent, but not a lot. It feels as if the whole character cast was hit with the DEI gun. Because of the 6 characters available, we have only one British. Outside of that, we have a Japanese guy, an Argentinian, a Nigerian, and then we have Imran and Devlin, which I can't even remember their nationalities. They are just men in exosuit and Firebug Lady to me, honestly. Listen, this game is not Overwatch. It was not built on some international group saves the world plot. It was a bunch of survivors from the UK in KF1, with the exception of DJ Scully, who I believe was Dutch, then turned mercenaries in KF2, but still British with a small sprinkle of bonus cast like Strasser and a couple other characters of other nationalities. And the humor and the way the characters talked was mostly still based around the thick Britishness and the British humor. This just isn't it. The cast looks like a generic Battle Royale cast featuring Foster from the Killing Floor series. And yeah, that's all I've got on the Britishness of it all. And those are the 3 pillars of Killing Floor that clearly were all scrapped. Oh boy. But now let's talk about some more things. First up, perks. Why the hell are they tied to a specific character? Why can't I use Foster as a sharpshooter? Who thought of this idea? I mean, Tripwire had one job. Make a Killing Floor game. A 6-player co-op horde shooter where you pick your perk, you can change the character skin to what you like, and off you go shoot some Zeds. Now you are tied up with your customization to only one character per perk, instead of being able to use the character you like the most as your go-to, and play as them, and be stuck with the voice lines of a character that you actually prefer. Now you are stuck with whatever character your perk is tied to. Tripwire did say that they will be uncoupling the perks and characters, but honestly, that should have never been a thing. That is not Killing Floor's identity. And regarding the perks themselves, the perks level up to level 30 each, but on top of that, you also get something called proficiency levels for every perk that is separate to the perks level, and from my understanding, the perk proficiency affects things in Z time, at least for Commando. And I will be using Commando as a reference point for the perk system, because that was a character that I've played for 10 hours. Mostly because that was the only character that I could use Foster for. If I could have him a sharpshooter, he'd probably be a sharpshooter instead. So now there is no more gaining modifiers every level, like you used to get in KF1 and in KF2, on top of unlocking skills every 5 levels. Now every roughly 2 levels, you get a selection of skills to choose from, and well, some of them are fine, some of them are just straight up boring, and some of them are just without a choice, like the +1 grenade skill that is the only choice in the node. And also, on top of that, you need to level these skills up, which means that up until you are level 30 and possibly even later, you may feel locked into a specific skill setup because you don't level these skills by playing with them. Oh no! You level them up by spending some currency. And I will touch on the currency later. But first, let's mention the backwater technology for the first time. You cannot change your skills in between rounds. Like, how's it even possible? In my video on KF2, I literally commended the devs for being able to set these skills on the fly, in between rounds in game, unrestricted. And now we can't do it. It's almost as if someone looked at the quality of life and customization aspect of KF2 and said, nah, we don't need that shit. I am honestly not even sure if you can switch perks between rounds, because, not gonna lie, I didn't even feel incentivized to do that. I suspect that you cannot switch between rounds based on the fact that you do not get XP for perks mid-game based on kills and actions you do. You get XP at the end of the game. And you also get that proficiency level at the end of the game, so I assume that also is not earned mid-game, but calculated on your performance. Meaning, most likely, you are actually locked into your perk. Oh yeah, and while we are on the backwards tech stuff, where are all the perks? The game started off with 6 perks available: Commando, Firebag, Medic, not Field Medic, just Medic, and Engineer, which is like, what the hell is this? Why is this Support Specialist and Demolitionist slapped into one? And Ninja, because apparently Berserker just got taken out back and shot in the head. I am all for new perks. In fact, I praised the 3 new perks that were added in KF2, but the remaining perks from KF1 were left untouched. Well, untouched in a way that you did not remove them, they were just improved. Meaning that we had a total of 10 perks. Here we have 6, with one basically being an amalgamation of 2 perks and one quote-unquote new perk that took a spot for Berserker. On top of that, there's pretty much no actual interaction between these perks outside of Medic having healing grenades and healing abilities. In KF1 and KF2, every perk had a purpose, and as a demonstration I will be showing what KF2 perks did. Sharpshooter was good at killing big Zeds with headshots, but it lacked damage outside of headshots. But it had freezing grenades, which were important to slow the Zeds down and freeze them in place. Commando was all around good and could be built to kill small Zeds or medium to large Zeds, but still was a precision perk, and in KF2 its role was to keep extending Z time. Berserker was supposed to be either a tank or a skirmishing annoyance for Zeds by using melee weapons and having a lot of built-in tankiness, and in Z time it became a literal killing machine. Field Medic could either heal and fight the Zeds or just focus on healing the team and buffing them. Support Specialist was good at crowd controlling Zeds with his shotguns, and on top of that, he was the best at welding doors, and he was carrying a backpack with additional ammo. Now, that additional ammo was so that everybody except himself could use mid-round, with a skill that would also give you some Kevlar if you took ammo from Support Specialist. Firebug was just a Firebug and was best left alone in his own lane or corner because his constant damage over time would make Zeds panic and flail around. Demo was not only good at just exploding everything around, he was carrying a free grenade for everyone, and he could make the welded up doors exploding doors, so that when Zeds broke the door, it would explode and kill a bunch of smaller ones. SWAT was tanky and good at killing small Zeds with his SMGs. Also, in Z time he was able to just run through enemies and either kill them on the spot or knock them back by running through them. Gunslinger was just a very mobile variant of a sharpshooter. Instead of strong single-shot weapons, you would get strong-ish akimbo pistols and you could just dance around Zeds and focus on racking up headshots to burst a bigger one down. And Survivalist was literally a make-a-class perk, where he could fill in any role that was needed to some capacity. While all of these perks were self-contained and were capable of holding their own, their true strength came to life when you played in a 6-man lobby and every perk played off of one another. In KF3, not only do I not know what these perks are supposed to do half the time, it also feels like every single one was just built from the ground up to be completely self-sufficient with the exception of syringes. Oh yeah, by the way, since we're on the topic of perks, let's talk about the 2 things that every single perk beforehand had, but some were better at using these tools than others. The welder and the syringe. Yeah, the welder is completely gone. You cannot close the doors except for using a specific item that you can buy in a shop. And the syringe is not rechargeable. It has a couple of uses, and after that, you gotta buy new ones in between rounds. Oh, and you cannot heal your teammates unless you are the medic. Like, what the hell? It's like everything that was making KF unique as a shooter is just being removed. Do you even know why the syringe was rechargeable and usable on teammates before? It's because it was incentivizing team play like that. If you use the syringe on yourself, you would spend the whole charge and you would have to wait for the syringe to charge back up to 100. But if you use the syringe on a teammate, you only spend 50% of the charge. And you were getting dodge for healing a teammate. That meant that players were actually encouraged to heal each other because this way everyone benefited. The healed player was healed and could keep on shooting and didn't die, and the player that healed would get some money for doing so. Now you just gotta heal yourself or pray in a multiplayer lobby that you have a medic that is competent. Oh yeah, and apparently med syringes that the medic has attached to his gun, they don't automatically recharge. Apparently you gotta actually shoot Zeds to recharge them. And like I mentioned, the welder is completely gone. You can close the doors and Zeds can break them in like 2 hits, and there is only one way to lock a door, but I'll talk about it later. So yeah, overall, perks, straight up downgrade. Tripwire seems to actually have lost the technology. And now let's talk about the train wreck that the HUD and the UI are. It also is all backwards. Look at this HUD. Look at it and tell me exactly what you see. Because what I see is a mess. It's really bad. The only 3 things that you can read and understand what they are the ammo count, health and armor count, and the remaining Zeds count. I can't tell you how many times I've mistaken my grenade count for the utility item and vice versa. And most of the time I literally could not see how many syringes I have left because these icons are so small. It looks like they tried to improve, quote unquote, on a KF2 HUD. But while the KF2 HUD was still minimalistic, it was thought through. The icons that were indicating grenades, health, ammo, etc. were big enough to notice and to distinguish them. Not to mention that the syringe icon next to the health bar was also bigger and red when available, slowly filling back up with red while recharging, meaning that you always had all the information you needed clearly visible. The HUD in KF1 was also better than this, even though it was really rough, but it was very readable. Oh yeah, also, wanna check stats mid-round to check who is alive, who isn't, maybe look at what perks the group has? Anything that usually you check when looking at the scoreboard? Yeah. Now if you press tab to open the scoreboard, you literally cannot move your character, shoot anything. A full-on menu that you can't see the map through shows up. How did we lose the tech to just have the scoreboard being displayable by holding down tab to just quickly show what you need to see mid-game? Oh yeah, and the scoreboard does not even show you the ping that you have, so you never know if in multiplayer you are lagging because you are thrown into an Asian server while in EU, or if it's just your internet. I am genuinely baffled. I legitimately have nothing good to say about the HUD. Now, the menus. When you first turn the game on, you are greeted by the compiling shader screen, but then they finally compile. The first time I launched the game, actually, it took 10 minutes to compile them. I managed to grab some food and eat it before it even finished. But then you enter the main menu, from which you can select only 2 options: play in multiplayer or play solo. Now, that wouldn't be as bad if it wasn't for the fact that both these options take you to a big empty hub in which you can customize the skills, queue for the game, go through the weapon mods, go to shooting range and everything else. So here's the question. Who asked for this? I mean, legit, who asked for a hub? Because I can't see a single person wanting this feature as the main feature, as your place where you will be doing your stuff from. Like, look, you can add that hub thing as a nice thing where you can walk around in between games while you wait for the game. But honestly, all of this should be solved in main menu. You just click what you want to do and you're done, without having to run around some, again, empty hub just to do it. Luckily, there's an option for that, but it's not immediately obvious. While you're in the hub, you gotta press tab. And the game does not tell you to. But here's the kicker. Even then, if you queue up for a game via that menu, you still have to physically run to the VTOL to start the queue. Reminder, you queued up through a menu, you didn't run around the hub, you didn't go to the hub's version of selecting a mission, you queued up through a menu, and you still have to run to the VTOL to start the queue. And it's only to start the queue. And when you start the matchmaking in multiplayer, you cannot stop it. You literally are physically unable to cancel the queue. The only way to do so, canceling the queue, is to leave to the main menu. And also, by the way, who even thought about it? That you are stuck in a queue and you cannot walk around the hub. I thought that's the whole purpose of the hub. You wait for the queue to pop, so now you can run around a place where, you can shoot something, slide around something. No, you are stuck waiting for a game. Oh yeah, and if you wanted to warm up in single player before you jump into multiplayer, you have to enter the single player instance of the hub, because you cannot just enter the hub and select whether you want to play multiplayer or single player. No. You have to enter the single player instance of the hub, then play there, and if you want to go multiplayer, you need to leave, and then enter into the multiplayer version of the hub. I'm really sorry, but how in the hell are we in 2025, but the game UI, menus, and everything are worse than a game from like 1999? No offense to the games from 1999, even then we had bangers like Unreal Tournament. I am 100% sure I missed something about these menus and the hub, but honestly, just talking about how this was implemented gives me a headache. Okay, now next point on the agenda, Zeds. I genuinely like some of them and absolutely despise the others. Obviously, all the Zeds were hit with that sci-fi high-tech stuff, and for some Zeds, it genuinely made them look better. And which Zeds do I mean? Well, for instance, clots, cysts, and bloats. They genuinely look good. A nice glow-up, overall, actually look better than in KF1 and 2, in my opinion, hands down. Not even gonna complain about them. Then we've got a couple Zeds that I'm neutral to. Gorefasts look similar, not exactly the same, but similar. And crawlers. Crawlers just look different, but creepy, so I'm fine with it. The crawlers are supposed to be creepy. Oh yeah, and we lost stalkers. Apparently there's no invisible women in Killing Floor 3, which I'm at the same time fine with, but not so fine with. But then we get to my biggest gripes. Sirens are absolutely awful. They do not look anywhere near like the sirens from KF1 or 2, and these versions were really good. The version we get in KF3 is some weird ass giraffe looking goofy robot that just screams. And then you have husks and skrakes, and I'm talking about them together because my god they look so similar. Same color schemes, I can't tell you how many times during the game I've mistaken a husk for a skrake and vice versa. They have the same colors, and on a map where it's darker or when there's a lot of Zeds around, you literally cannot tell them apart. The husk should have a distinguishable color, and Skrake, while he looks fine, honestly he should be bigger, like more buff. And same goes for the Fleshbound. It does look like a Fleshbound, but yeah, it just needs to be more buff, more chunky. And well, before I move on to my big problem with the Zeds, let's just talk about how the Zeds move. Their movement is either very snappy or very dumb. They very often start their attack animations and just start snapping onto a player, rather than smoothly flow from one animation to another. Like, if you remember what I mentioned in the KF2 video, the animations in KF2 were smooth, the transitions were smooth, and they didn't feel like the enemies were snapping onto a player. They maybe sometimes like stuttered from one animation to another, but it was all kind of like on a roll. And here they either snap or they just get stuck trying to chase you over some ledge or T-pose like while falling down. But yeah, animations are not really my biggest gripe. My biggest problem with the Zeds is the sound design. You really cannot tell the Zeds apart when they attack. They all sound samey, and on top of that, the important sounds like the Scrake spawning and the Fleshpound spawning, which were very clear and distinct in KF2 to inform you that there is a big Z or multiple big Zs spawning, in KF3 are just confusing more than anything. They are not loud enough, they're kind of quiet. Some of them don't even sound like the spawn sounds, for Fleshpounds and Scrakes. And they are not distinct enough. The chainsaw revving when Scrake spawns is almost non-existent, and some might say, "But Marco, just lower the music and you'll hear these sounds." Well, listen. I did not need to do it in KF2. The sound was clearly made louder than everything else and very distinct to tell you, hey, a Scrake spawned. Hey, look, a Fleshpound. Now it's not nearly as clear. In fact, I found myself many a time surprised that a Scrake or a Fleshpound showed up because I could not hear it. And also, one more thing that was helpful in Killing Floor 2, for instance, was that the operators actually pointed out that there is a Z, like specifically a Scrake or a Fleshpound. I remember that Mr. Foster would literally yell, "Scrake!" when he saw a Scrake, and that was audible to other players. So even if you didn't necessarily hear the Scrake spawning sound because you were busy, you still heard the player model close to you yell out that there's a Scrake, so you turn around and look for the Scrake. Here, they don't call the big Zs out.
Oh crap! Fleshpound! Careful, Fleshpound! We've got a
Zs
Fleshpound!
out. But what about the bosses? Well, they look cool, but they are just bullet sponges. Like, genuinely, they feel like they were built from the ground up to just be a giant bullet sponge. Something that you could compare to like Abomination combined with Matriarch, meaning an absolute sponge for bullets with ranged attacks and a separate phase when hitting 50% health. I genuinely don't even want to introduce these bosses because there isn't anything to talk about really except for one thing. There's 3 in total. You have Impaler, Queen Crawler, and Chimera. And while the Queen Crawler and Chimera show up in a full 6-man lobby on hard, they just spawn more small Zeds to annoy you. When it's the Impaler, they spawn 3 bosses. Like, why can't you do something more creative than 3 huge bullet sponges? Who even thought of spawning 3 bosses at the same time for a 6-man lobby? And these bosses just run around and can murder you fairly easily, and they are just a huge bullet sponge. Like, with Queen Crawler and with Chimera, all these little shitters, they spawn, you can kill them off fairly quickly, and they're just an annoyance to like block you off so you cannot run away from the boss. But you can dispose of them fast. Here you have 3 different Impalers running around. Who thought about it? And that is where I was supposed to talk more about the gun attachments, so just a quick explanation on what I actually meant. Each boss has a type of damage that it is vulnerable and resistant to, meaning that they either take less or more damage from the weapon based on the type of ammo that it uses. Ammo being one of the attachments. But you do not know what boss you'll be getting. So grabbing a weapon with an attachment bullet type that the boss is resistant to and not neutral to or vulnerable to means that you will be taking even longer to kill the boss. How is that fine? It's not like you can plan against all 3 bosses in a single player when none of them share a common vulnerability. In fact, they do mutually resist the damage types that the other ones are vulnerable to. So yeah, that's the bosses. Genuinely, there's nothing else to them. But hey, you know what this game has? Multiple currencies to keep you grinding longer. Your in-game currency to buy weapons in-game is Dosh. That hasn't changed. But you gather materials in every game from either Zeds or electronics around the map to create and upgrade attachments. And if you want to upgrade your skills when you level up, Yeah, that is a separate currency too, buddy. You get it at the end of the game, tough luck. It's genuinely insane. And of course, you also have a separate currency in a shop and in the battle pass, because why wouldn't you? And speaking of, this game launched with all these problems. It launched undercooked, and it still has a flawlessly working battle pass and a functioning shop. They work fine. The microtransactions are completely working, but half of the game doesn't. And the shop obviously has an in-game currency that always seems to be either barely not enough or just over what you actually want to buy when you buy a bundle. Because, of course, this is bad business practice 101. Why wouldn't it find its way in Killing Floor 3? Oh yeah, and the game has seasons now. Because, of course, it has to have seasons, right? Like every other Apex Legends or Fortnite or Call of Duty or any other live service game. We can't just have a normal game that just, let's say, has a Christmas update. It has to be Season X. I am genuinely amazed and baffled that Tripwire released this game in a state that it's in and Steam did not ask them to put an early access tag on their store page. Because legitimately, this feels like an early access title that's being sold as a full title, and I do not like that. I was also going to rant about how clunky the movement feels, but honestly, I don't think I need to. It's just clunky. You dash, sprint, slide around, and that's basically what you do, but it's not even that responsive. And don't get me started on the servers. For some reason, not only can you not see your ping, you don't even know what server you are located in, because there is no server browser, and you might just get matched on a server somewhere in Asia while you live in Western Europe, and hate your life because it's just so laggy, but you will not know this because there is no server info. And the netcode is insanely buggy too. The Zeds start hitting you with melee attacks from halfway across the corridor, then zoom around and then just stare at you and then you die. Absolutely not fun. Now, there is one more saving grace that KF3 has, and that is the music. The music's a banger. Although it feels like some of the tracks are just refreshed versions of the old ones. For instance, I noticed during a stream that there was the Killing Floor 2 menu music playing as a battle track in game. But still, the music does not disappoint in the game. It's heavy, it's metal, it actually feels really good. And on that positive note, being the fact that the music is good, I would like to finish this already long video. I honestly did not think that I would write an over 5,000 word essay about how I feel about Killing Floor 3. In fact, I thought I'd be writing about how I think the game is fine and people are overreacting, but after making 2 videos on 2 separate Killing Floor games, I genuinely feel like the devs that are working on the third installment did not do their due homework, and instead looked at the titles like Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex Legends, and Battlefield 2042, which, by the way, got so much backlash that they had to fix shit in that game too to revive it. And that shows. And I really do hope that the devs see this video and note down all the problems that I mentioned and some of the solutions and fix the game ASAP. Because as of now, I genuinely cannot recommend you playing this game. Because in the state that it's in, it might be fine if you like eating slop or the only shooter you've ever played is Call of Duty Zombies, the new one, or Apex Legends. But I feel like this game release is an insult to the gaming community's intellect. It feels soulless, corporate, and like nobody that worked on this game, and especially the management, cared about making a good title. Just a quick bug because they could not squeeze more money out of KF2. And by the way, Killing Floor 2 was awfully monetized. Like, they had to earn tons of money on it. Where is that money? Why was it not pumped into Killing Floor 3? Or was it just pumped into Unreal Engine 5? Because honestly, while Killing Floor 2 had insane microtransactions, at least it had really good gameplay. After playing KF3, I'm genuinely considering just changing my review on KF2 and telling people to just play Killing Floor 2 instead of Killing Floor 3, because it's just better. And that is all I have to say in this video, folks. It is the last Killing Floor video I will make in a while. I'll go back to what I actually wanted to do with this channel, which is reviewing older games. There were actually 2 comments under my Gothic 1 video asking for Gothic 2, and one asking for the remake comparison when it comes out. And that is definitely in the works, but before that comes out, I think I have 2 more short-ish games that I'll be talking about. So, with all that said, if you liked this video, please do consider leaving a like, a comment, and a sub, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye bye.